Bitcoin has now perfectly backtested the top of last week's resistance, leading some to believe the bulls have been dumped on enough to continue the pump. But is this all one giant fake out, or in fact, the biggest middle-aged mommy makeout of all time? So if you're new here, hit that like, subscribe, get signed up to FemeX below if you're gonna buy Bitcoin or altcoins. And let's absolutely dump into the charts today, where we see Bitcoin so far on the daily chart having a nice little itsy bitsy bounce right at about 90,000 US dollars, right where we saw Bitcoin spend November 11th all the way up to November 19th trying to break above concretely $90,000 for the first time. And so far Bitcoin's actually gotten a bounce there. Keep in mind, this is significantly above the 21 and 50-day moving averages all the way down here and here. So still, we have not had a big pullback at all. This is still a micro pullback, and you have to keep your eyes open and keep your mind open, because we could easily go down way more than this and still be above $100,000 in a week or two. That's how quickly this market moves, and also how bullish I think the sentiment is right now. And to echo this bullishness, a bill to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve has just been introduced in Brazil's Chamber of Deputies. Guys, I mean, once it happens, it happens. I think when it truly kicks off, it's going to happen extremely fast, and people aren't going to understand. People that are not following this space every day are going to be caught off guard with how quickly the adoption in the race by nations worldwide to start adding Bitcoin to a strategic reserve becomes. The floodgates are about to be left open. James Van Straten highlighting this, basically people panic selling the most amount of Bitcoin ever yesterday. Yesterday was the most Bitcoin ever panic sold in nominal terms to exchanges, about $4 billion worth. This leads to liquidation cascades, and smart money picks up cheap coins. He says here, he thinks we're done at a 10% correction. So what does a 10% correction look like? If we actually zoom out and just go to the top, right at about, we squeaked right almost at 100,000, but like 99,000 or so. A 10% correction brings us down to about 90,000. Currently, we've had roughly about a 8% correction. So give or take, either we go down another 2% according to him, or we pretty much have already gotten it according to him. Either way, this yesterday was an immense amount of Bitcoin that got sold, quite literally nominally the most ever. And this chart illustrates Bitcoin buying almost 3,000 Bitcoin every single day. This is quite bonkers to look at. You look at this going all the way back to the beginning of January of 2024, the middle of January 2024, when the Bitcoin spot ETFs launched, and you can see the accumulation that these ETFs have gobbled. You can see it kind of stalled out towards that kind of lull period, but really not. I mean, it didn't really stall out that much. I mean, look at this. Even though there was a couple weeks at a time where it looked sideways, for the most part, it was still accumulation. It's just now we're in complete vertical accumulation, just like we were the first 3 months, or almost actually the first 4 months of the Bitcoin spot ETF launch was basically vertical accumulation. All accumulation in the middle as well, but again, we're more vertically accumulating again, just massive amounts of accumulation, and that leads to less supply and higher prices. And if you think Bitcoin is anywhere close to being as valuable as it ever can be, I have some news for you. It's not. It is only 0.2% of global financial assets. It's actually mind-boggling how much value there is to still be overtaken. The total global asset value is almost a quadrillion. It's 900 trillion. Up here, but you can see real estate accounts for the biggest chunk of this, about 330 trillion, bonds at about 300 trillion, money at about 120 trillion, equities at about 115. I mean, for pizza's sake, art and other collectibles is 25 trillion. That's crazy. That's absolutely insane. You can see it's covered by my camera here, but gold is 16 trillion, and right now Bitcoin is 1.8 trillion. So this blue box right here is 16 trillion. It's covered a little bit by the camera, but I mean, you don't really need to see it. It's not that important. It's just crazy how little Bitcoin is valued compared to it, and how much potential upside there still is. And if Saylor bought 50,000 Bitcoin per month for the next 13 months, he gets to about 1 million coins before the end of this upcoming year in 2025. let's say the bull market is over, there's a crash and Bitcoin falls to $100,000 at the end of the bull market. MicroStrategy's market cap would be about 100 billion going into a bear market. He says here, let's assume the Saylor's strategy doesn't change and he continues to buy even during a bear market. Even if he didn't buy any more Bitcoin, and if Bitcoin goes to $1 million, his market cap would be worth $1 trillion, which is just a one times the NAV, which is the net asset value. So a 6-year time horizon from today gets Saylor to about 100 billion to about $1 trillion market cap. He already did $1 billion to 100 billion in 4 years from 2020 to 2024. He's saying that he could potentially pull 1,000x with Bitcoin in 10 years if he can actually pull this hypothetical off. And I mean, I've been following Saylor for a while. I think he's going to probably keep buying Bitcoin. He seems very, very intent. And the fact that he went from 2020 to 2024 and he endured the bear market, even when people remember at the bottom around 15 or 16K, so many people were bear posting about him being liquidated. I think this guy's going to buy, as he mentions in a million clips, he's going to be buying the top forever, meaning he's going to be buying in a bear market, bull market, doesn't matter. He's going to be buying Bitcoin. What this post ends by saying is the truth is we don't know where it's going to end, and he doesn't think Saylor does either, but he says in his opinion it's a man and a company worth betting on. Hey, it really is kind of like nobody 100% knows exactly what's going to happen here, but it is kind of exciting, and so far it is, it's been taking Wall Street by storm. It's like the most increased stock. It's kind of crazy. Bitcoin is getting stronger according to Plan B as well, with the RSI over 75, soon to be over 80. Bull market basically in full effect. This takes a lot of time to play out, however. Bitcoin for Freedom on X talking about almost 100,000 Bitcoin taken off the exchanges last month. Supply squeeze is inevitable, and humans have never seen an asset that becomes less available the more popular it becomes. Truly, I mean, that's one of the things I'm the most excited to see, is that this is something where you can't make more of it. It's a very it's a deflationary asset, and you can't just make more of it. Didn't they just found more gold like a couple days ago or something, right? And that's always going to be the case. Let's say a meteorite hits Earth, and it's maybe gold will be so plentiful that, I mean, that's the concern there with something like gold. Whereas this is the very first asset in human history where there's never going to be more of them. So how is that going to truly impact the price of it? I mean, again, I think we're heading right towards that S curve or the inflection point of the S curve, the technological S curve. I think it's going to be kind of nuts here. We see that $872 billion Standard Chartered Bank says that Bitcoin is still on track for about $125,000 per coin in just the next month, even though we're getting a little bit of a dip. Hey, I'm not worried about this dip. It's not really much of a dip so far. I personally still think it could go, pretty low or a lot lower in just the next week or so, and it would still be fine. And I still think we could hit 100,000 by the end of this year, even with a bigger dip. And Jim Cramer, obviously, he's on the ball again. Whenever he's bullish on something, it goes down. Whenever he's bearish on it, it goes up. And just a couple of days ago, he was saying Bitcoin's a winner, and it's down since then. It's kind of crazy. I don't know. I really don't know how he's so accurate. Whatever he says, the opposite happens, all the time. I think I've probably talked about this being the case over 100 times in the past couple of years, which is kind of crazy. The fact that whatever one person says, the market does the opposite, quite literally, basically every single time. It's impressive. I don't understand. Is it some sort of witchcraft, or I don't get it. And I don't think the world understands how he continues to be the inverse of reality every time. It's crazy. And billionaire and Pantera's Capital CEO saying Bitcoin is going to about $750,000. Kind of crazy. Dan Moorhead, he's obviously been bullish on crypto in the past, but currently Bitcoin, if we actually take a look at Bitcoin's chart right now, dominance is still, nothing today, nothing new. It's kind of the same price as yesterday. But yeah, this potentially could turn into a bigger pullback. And I'm still very open to the idea of seeing Bitcoin go down to about $80,000 in a maybe some sort of flash crash event. Remember, I talked about early in the video how liquidation cascades can occur if price goes too high or too low. And at a certain point, we could see a breakdown. Again, the factor X basically is just how much Bitcoin is being gobbled up by the spot ETFs and by Wall Street and by Michael Saylor specifically, and people like Dan Moorhead, who I just mentioned, people that are buying a lot of Bitcoin. So can Bitcoin get that low? It's a hard question to answer because we've never been in this environment before. Weekly chart, again, actually, if we look at the weekly and we look at the momentum oscillators, I mean, yeah, RSI and MACD are both still fine. We could go even lower and this would still be on a weekly chart totally fine, and still bullish. But in the short term, as I mentioned, I mean, the stock market is up a little bit today. The SPX is kind of like sitting right at those all-time highs. And if we look also, I saw the DXY. This will be something huge still, as I think that whenever the DXY starts collapsing, Bitcoin's going to go on a monster run. And the DXY, the US dollar, has been increasing for the past 2 months. It bottomed out at about 100, and it's all the way right now up at about almost, well, it went up to 108. But it got a sharp rejection there. Maybe this is the beginning of reversal. You see a very big wick on the DXY here, and so far 2 red daily candles. So we'll see. Overall, I think the US dollar is going to trend down over the next 1 to 2 years. But the past 2 months have been pretty bullish for the dollar, and Bitcoin in the past has struggled to pump when that happens. However, Bitcoin has pumped in the past 2 months. So if the US dollar started dumping, that would just give more fuel to Bitcoin and also to the stock market. But zooming out, I mean, really, 90,000 is I think going to be pretty big support, honestly. Now that we're at these price levels for the first time ever. Like, we've never been above $90,000 except for the past like couple of weeks, or about 1 week or so. So this is all like newer territory. If Bitcoin can already flip 90,000 as support, that would be very bullish also. But it wouldn't be bad if we also went down in the meantime. I mean, I personally, we look at it this way. This entire box, this is the entire cryptocurrency market. We really did just trend sideways and down for like 8 solid months. So what's a better way to look at this actually? Basically this whole chart. So I think this thing has more juice. I personally don't think that we're going to enter another couple of months of sideways or something. I think it's more likely either we get a liquidation cascade that brings us down to, maybe for the altcoin market, maybe down to about like 1.15 trillion, which is kind of where the top of this was back in March, and then head up. And same thing for Bitcoin. I think that maybe we'll come down and tag this, or we bounce right at 90, which would look more like this, and keep going up. But honestly, yeah, I mean, the environment's very bullish. December is also historically a very bullish time for crypto, and the stock market as well. And we saw what happened at the beginning of this year, of 2024. Bitcoin went on like a 3-month insane rally. I think that, where we are in the cycle, which is right about here, I don't think we're going to be spending a lot of time going sideways. Just like, look at the middle of these boxes. So for us right now, that's about here. For back in the last bull market, again, it was a lot of just straight going up. And same thing here. You go to the middle. Most of the pumpy price action actually kind of happens in the site, at least in relative terms, exactly where we're at now. So I personally am leaning just more towards, we should just see an exponential acceleration in price more. I just think that's the most likely option, as opposed to quite literally anything else. And sign up with Femex below if you want to take advantage of large deposit bonuses as well. Participate in a 100,000 USDT prize pool for Thanksgiving, limited time event. And without any further ado,